This is the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity by taking them to the edge of their comfort zone so that they can lead us to the edge of what's next. I'm your host, Niiamah Ashong. Let's do this.
Why, hello there. Niiamah Ashong here, founder of Outliers Edge, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. I'm going to say that again too, just because it just feels good. And this time I'm going to do it like this. Hey there, Niiamah Ashong here, founder of Outliers Edge, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. Sometimes I just want to really just play around with the energy that's in the space, the energy that's within me, and to see what I want to bring and where the actual place of space, of transformation, and of connectedness begins and flows. Today, I'm with someone who is when I think about her, connectedness and flow actually really come to mind. I get a chance to be in conversation with an amazing outlier, Madelaine Vallin. Madelaine, it's so good to be in space with you here today. How are you?
Thank you. I'm really good. Thank you. Yeah, feeling good. Good to see you.
It is good to see you. Yeah. So Madelaine, I love to start off these conversations. I do two things to start off the conversations. One, I remind myself that I'm here championing the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. We know each other. So sometimes it's I'm oh, I'm having a conversation with Madelaine, but I have to really remind myself, no, she's the work that she does in the world, who she be in the world. And this has been you for decades. You've been moving and shifting and shaping humanity in a really meaningful way. I want to just make sure I see you and acknowledge that. I also want to take in some time here to just let you know who you are to me. And I don't know what I'm going to say just yet, but I do know that it's been an important practice of mine, and probably I think why I feel so open to everything else in this conversation being whatever happens. 'Cause more than anything else, I just need to know that I see you and you are important to me. And here goes why. So, hey, Madelaine. The thing about you is whenever I see you, I think about multiple journeys, right? And you remind me, you're one of the people in my life that reminds me that one, we can reinvent ourselves. Two, the reinvention is actually still just a different iteration of the same person, just another layer gone, or a different version that is choosing to take center stage here. I think about you from music to something you had mentioned to me years ago, where you talked about keynote performances, keynote concerts, and just the radical idea of people call me in to perform for an hour while I'm still creating transformation. That idea planted a seed in my head that has been growing for the last few years of saying, what is the thing I constantly think about the equivalent of a keynote concert for me. Most people know keynote speeches, but no one I knew was doing keynote concert at the time. But I think about what's that thing that I'm doing that everyone else does, but if I truly allowed myself to just be free, I would do it in the way that really resonates. And then I'll talk to you, and then there's a brand new thing. You're hey, by the way, for now it's been a couple of years that you've been involved in it, but there's a lot of evolution with you. And that really just feels really it brings me to a place of inner peace, in the sense of whatever I'm doing right now in this moment is perfect for this moment. And when the change happens, because there will be a shift, I don't know when it is, I don't know what it will be, but when that shift will take place, I think about you, and it makes me feel comfort and graciousness toward whatever that shift will be, as well as appreciation to what is currently happening in the present. It's not a reminder to just enjoy what's here, because one day there will be a new path, there'll be a new exploration, and I don't have to rush into whatever that is. That will come when it comes, and this time just take the time to be with that. So that's who you are to me in this moment here. That's when I'm in space, that's what I'm reminded of. That's what I sink into. That's the part of me that comes alive just being in your presence. I'm really, really, really grateful to know you and to be in space with you.
Thank you. That's really beautiful. And I think, yeah, you've really pinpointed a few things that are really important to me.
Like what?
One, that I'm very driven by passion. And passion is probably one of the only things that you cannot teach anybody to have. You know, it's something that we lean into. When we lean into our own passion. And once we lean into our passion, we get inspired, we get in that feeling of wanting to move forward. And for me, passion has been following me all my life in everything I've been doing. And through that, listening to that inner part of yourself that is guiding you in the right direction, even though the direction might feel awkward, or I'm not sure about this, but that trust inside and then following that passion has been something that's been extremely important to me. That goes through when I used to create music and be creating in that way. Now I'm helping people to recreate their lives, step into that other chapter of whatever that may be. And, you know, working with people in that way is very similar to music in a way. Like, you're still creating, it's just that you're creating the song together or supporting them to create their song. And, you know, the teaching as well of what I'm doing is very similar to that. It's helping people to create their lives and using passion as something to lean into to move towards what it is that you really want.
Yeah, that feels good. That feels really good. I think I get curious about like where passion will play in this conversation. I'm actually right now, as we're speaking, I'm checking in with my body as to like where passion lies. Interestingly enough, I feel like a feeling in like the bottom left hand stomach, like in my gut, but over to the left. Like it feels more like my stomach, but like it's like right in that space there. And yeah, I think that there's something that's in here that's really curious about like what would happen if passion became alive in this conversation. How would I show up in that? So this year I'll be putting a bit of my attention onto like into that spot and seeing like where passion like come from life. What are you working on right now that you're really passionate, or like maybe it's not what you're working on, but like what in your life right now are you truly passionate about right now?
Oh, I'm passionate about a lot of things, because I feel like I've came to a point in my life where I have created or laid the foundation for me to be able to feel passionate. I spend a lot of my day creating and making stuff up, which is really, really cool because I love that. So we're writing a whole new program at the college at the moment. We've been teaching the same courses for 4 years, and we're moving into a new era, which is really exciting. And that really excites me because obviously I'm passionate about well-being and human flourishing. What makes us flourish as human beings? Passion is a big part of that, by the way. But that really, really excites me. And my own spiritual journey on this planet excites me. I think being a busy entrepreneur for a long time, a year and a half ago, I sort of found myself in a place where I had lost the connection to my spiritual self and my inner being, even though I was teaching other people about how to do that. I felt like, well, I know that I lost it myself, which led me down the path of experiencing burnout, which was a very difficult time in my life. And it's taken me a long time to get back from that. And the story around that is that what I needed to really do was to reconnect to the home within myself, the deep connection with my spiritual being, so that I could walk through life in balance with who I am completely. And it's been life-changing. I mean, the gift of burnout is only just beginning, and I'm beginning to start to see what gifts it's been given me. Believe me, when you're in it, you do not see any gifts.
Yeah, I'm like
really
when
painful.
you said it, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's not a pleasant experience. I mean, I had heart problems. I had a lot of atopic beats, which was very scary. It was basically, the doctor explained it as I was running a marathon race, but my body wasn't moving. My legs weren't moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was all happening inside of your body, was just like producing and just like performing, and you were just like, but I'm just sitting here right now.
Yes. Yes. And I think the biggest part of it was that I and this is again something with passion, being able to really deepen and ground your passion, because the passion took over and I wanted to over deliver. I wanted to give more. I wanted to be more. I wanted to support more. And at the same time, our college grew exponentially over a really fast period of time. And I wanted to hold space for everybody. I wanted to offer them the same service as I did when I had a small group in a face-to-face setting. So I expected so much of myself, and my passion was pushing me forward to make this happen, because I was loving what I was doing. I didn't get burnout because I was in the wrong job or I was doing the wrong thing. I was doing everything right. But underneath it all was this need to deliver more, to do more, to be more for them. And that was the thing that tipped me over and caused this burnout. So I think that's a warning sign, or something to think about for a lot of people. We can find ourselves in those situations even though we do what we love. And that was surprising to me. Because when it happened to me, I thought, well, this is not me. This is not who I am. I'm not supposed to get this. I'm sure there's something else wrong with me. I'm sure there's another reason why my body is not functioning. And I went to every doctor and gone, tell me, what is it? Is it my thyroid? Is it, whatever, right? And there was nothing of that. There's only one thing. I pushed myself too hard and expected too much of myself.
I really love that distinction there. Like, so firstly, like, I'm happy to hear that you're on, like, you've been able to go, you're on the other side of that journey. Although like from just talking to you in the past, as well as talking to some other friends who've experienced burnout, it's like, there's some element of like saying the other side is, this may not necessarily be all that fair to the entire experience. So just know that I say it with as much love as I can around that, yeah, one of the things that strikes me is that last part around, like, essentially it felt like, it's like, well, that, like, burnout can't be me, because I'm not working in a job that I hate, that's just like asking for things. That's like, I'm actually doing what I love. I'm serving the people that I want to be serving. I have the opportunity to do it, like, and I am rising to meet the occasion, and I'm doing more and more and more, like, but that's this is still in alignment with the passion here. If I'm hearing you, there's a part of it that had some resistance or couldn't, like, tell me a little bit about that, like, with the fact that it was still in your passion zone, and you were also experiencing burnout.
And it was at that point, because I wasn't connecting or bringing my passion down and grounding it, and I was working from a place of not being enough, not delivering enough, not being there for everybody, the passion became, I don't want to say it wasn't good for me, but the passion became something that made me go on to overdrive.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I wasn't grounding it. And it took me a long time to get that. And it's interesting because when you read about burnout, a lot of the talk around burnout is to do with that you're not in the right place, or and for me, like I said, that was not the case for me. I was very happy in a lot of ways in my life. But what was similar to everybody, or a lot of people with burnout, was that idea of, I am not delivering enough. I should be more. That's where it came through. And I thought I had a handle on that, knowing what I know about how to recharge and reconnect and how to be present and all those things. I thought, well, that's not supposed to happen to me, because I'm the one that should have all this worked out. I'm the one teaching all this stuff. So there was also this level of shame. It was a bit embarrassing. It was something that I didn't really feel very proud of, because I thought, well, that's a big failure, isn't it? Like, you're teaching all this stuff and then you're falling for it, And I got that from people too. From
people came to you and they said, they brought this up. I'm like legitimately surprised. So people came to you and actually said that.
Yes.
And like,
yes, that, wow, and people that I regarded highly, I should say. It's interesting because other people didn't. the people that gone through burnout never said that. The people that were connected to their heart didn't say that. Yes. But there were certain people that said, oh, it's strange that happened to you. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, right? So there was a bit of shame there. There was a bit of, oh, maybe I failed, maybe I did something wrong, which again puts you down that same cycle of blame and not feeling like you did enough, right? So I had to work on myself around that, and I had to figure out if I really was a failure. I think I had to really look at that and be really honest with myself, because it doesn't matter what people say, whether they think you were or you weren't. At the end of the day, you've got to kind of break it down for yourself, right? And what's the truth for you, and then find that right path. So I had to do that, and I had to sit with that. And one of the scariest thing I did, I think, was actually deciding to not hide it.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about that, because as we're talking here, I'm hearing you say things like there's the shame, the embarrassment that's there, right? But we're in the conversation about it right now.
Yes.
And you brought it into the space. So so I am really curious about that. So you made a decision to not hide it. Can you take me to a bit of making that decision, and then then we can talk about it afterwards? But I feel like there's a courageousness that's required in making that decision, or some kind of, there's something that I'm going to call courageousness right now. It might come off as something else for you. You might be like, no, I'll just live it in my purpose, or whatever it is for you. But take me to when you made the decision to not hide that, and then we'll continue on from there.
Well, I think what I've learned, right, we have and working with people and working with myself, is that we tend to have these obstacles in our mind that tells us that if I do this, something really scary is going to happen, or people are going to judge you. And I find that the best way to deal with that is actually to challenge those things in your head. So instead of me going, oh, I'm going to listen to this voice in my head saying, you better not share this stuff because it's shameful, I'm going to actually share this stuff and see if it actually is shameful, or see what comes back to me when I do. Yeah. So that was where I kind of challenged that within myself. And I decided to just put it out there and say, this has happened to me. This is what I've gone through. I showed pictures of me with, a Holter monitor and all this stuff all over my body where they're measuring your heart rate. And I talked openly about it and say, hey, this happened to me. And that was part of the healing process for me. Okay. Because what happened when I actually shared it openly, people came back to me and said, oh, wow, that's happened to me too. Or, oh, wow, thank you for your vulnerability. Or, you know, that really struck a chord with me. And what I learned from that is that we often connect through our vulnerabilities, right? And that's, you know, we hear that a lot, but the connection of vulnerability means that you have to share things that you are not proud of. Because very often when people talk about vulnerabilities, it's not real. Like, we make up the story and put it in such a way that it looks vulnerable, but the truth is I've kind of moved away some of the bits on the outside because that's too much. So I'm going to like package it, and I'm going to show you my vulnerability, and then I'm going to show you how great my life is now. So this is where I was, but now look how great I am. And that for me is not vulnerability. Vulnerability is saying, hey, this is me. This is what happened to me. And right now I don't have any or all of the answers, but this is my next step. I don't tell you the path to solving it. This is where I am. Not because I need sympathy, but this is the place I am. And I'm okay with that.
There's something in there I want to like slow down just a bit on, because it's like there are a couple of different things that feel like I like to highlight. I love this element of like real vulnerability versus not. There's a marked moment in my life where I feel like I was on a path of being more vulnerable, being more openly vulnerable at a certain level. And I read someone's post that was actually really great. It was like a money vulnerability, and like this is how, like, you might see my business looks good over here and I'm making multiple six figures, but actually what I'm taking home is like, you know, very, very little, so on and so forth. And I remember just having like this like internal reaction to it that like that took me off the path of vulnerability. So it's been a while since I've like really talked about vulnerability in a bit, right? And what's lovely from what you're saying here is like, it almost feels like you're challenging the way that it's almost like it's like you're challenging what is powerful vulnerability versus like what is just being vulnerable. And I think that there's something in there. There's vulnerability for the sake of vulnerability. There's vulnerability for the sake of, look at me. There's vulnerability for like, okay, I can only be vulnerable about this to be able to tell this very specific story that at the end of the day actually puts me in a good light. And like, there's really nothing really at risk in the way that I told this story. And I feel like from what I'm hearing from you, there's a level of vulnerability that exists where it's like, I'm actually still in it. I don't know how this is gonna end up. Like there's power in the place that I'm remaining powerful in is in still choosing what comes next, at least in terms of the next step. But like the next step might just be that I'm going to sit down and read some comments, or like I'm going to go take care of myself here. And this has a different quality to it than something that may be a little bit more. There's a time where I started getting performative and I wasn't sure necessarily like how, like the power of vulnerability again, but I feel like you really tapped into it here.
Yeah. For me, it's vulnerability through what comes up for me when you're talking is the idea of vulnerability through courage.
Yeah.
It's through that space. That space of you know, because courage is, you know, speaking one's mind, speaking from the heart, right? Speaking how you're feeling from the heart. That's what courage means, right?
Yeah.
So it is really holding that space of, this is my heart is speaking here, and I'm opening up to that. But it comes from courage, you know. It doesn't come from sympathy or I'm still, or I am bleeding and I need you to see my blood. It comes from, this is who I am. This is what's happened to me. And speaking from that space and living from that space is, I think the emotion is empowering.
Yeah.
It feels empowering. So when you're speaking from a vulnerable place, it shouldn't feel sad or degrading or embarrassing. It should feel empowering.
For who?
For you, for the person speaking.
Yeah. Let me just check in on that. Yeah, I feel like there's as we're talking about this here, what comes for me is that I'm playing this out for me in real time as well, right? And playing this element of like, okay, yeah, I'm always really cautious of like words that like felt really powerful, and then like people just started messing with it and took the power out of it. I'm really sad about authenticity. I feel like it's a great word. I feel it's a great thing. And then people just started just be like, I'll be my authentic self. And it's like the power just like went away, right? And vulnerability came back on the map, I feel, with Brene Brown, and like people really started to get into it. And then things started to shift away. There's something that's playing out in my mind here around the distinction between vulnerability and messiness. And to make it real in this case here, I'll make it real with me in this case, right? Which is the component of a lot of things I choose to do off the cuff. Like, let's just hit record. Let's go. I found that like doing things live ends up being a really good medium for me because I can't lie, like, and if I do lie, I have to, like, I get to catch myself. And to me, it's almost like it feels worse to be seen as a truth teller who had made up lies in the prior versions than to just be seen saying it really and truly. And at the same time, like, we're kind of talking about a little bit of like nuance about like how vulnerability should feel like as a person who's sharing vulnerably, right? You're like, it should feel courageous, not sad, or in other ways. There's ways that it can be powerful, and there's ways that it could be like disempowering. There's a part of me that like is really just curious to just be in conversation and explore the component that I'm exploring right now, which is like, okay, how do you navigate that without being messy, or like making messiness into its own vulnerability in and of itself? There's this thing that runs in the back of my mind where I'm like, is this vulnerable? I don't know. It's real right now. This is what's happening right now. And I think the reason for this is that I know what it is. It goes back with that word courage, right? It's like there's a part of me that feels a bit of discomfort sharing this right here, mainly because I'm like, I don't know how to phrase this in like the perfect way. I'm asking myself, am I spending too much time talking as like someone who invited you into the podcast? And there's another part that goes and says like, well, this is what you do. Like you put yourself in open-ended situations, but is that actually courageous? Is it actually vulnerable for you, or is it just transparent now? And so there's a part of me that's deeply curious about it. Not that there's a right answer or a wrong here, but I get curious about your thoughts on this here. What either your thoughts or your feelings on it? Like what comes up for you as I say this, or what are you curious about what I just said?
Well, that's the whole beauty of this, right? It's such a personal experience, what it means, because courage for you will probably be totally different to me if we go down into the layers of it. And that's what's so nice about it. So courage for you might not be being okay with speaking and ad-libbing and kind of getting yourself out there. That might not actually be that courageous for you because it's something that you just do. Courage for you might be something else. It might be sharing a different part of you or connecting to a different part of you. Whilst for somebody else, standing up and speaking for themselves is really courageous. It demands a lot from themselves to be able to do that. I mean, there's studies that show that one of the things that people fear the most is public speaking. Like, they fear it more than death. I mean, that's crazy, right? But we know that there are people that really find that difficult. But for you, it might not be. That might be something that comes totally natural to you. And there's something else that is a zone or an area that's really courageous for you to walk into.
Yeah. So I have to say this here because like whether it's courage or not, I know I'm feeling it. Right. I'm really grateful for you. I'm also like a little like miffed, right? Like irked because I'm like, oh, I think she's right. Yeah. like I was like, oh, I have to go figure out what's courageous for me again now, you know?
Mhm.
Uh
Yeah.
and I think that feels really it's it's liberating in some senses. Um Also just from the sense of like, and like how many, like I don't like to ask open-ended questions. So not open-ended questions. I don't like to ask rhetorical questions. So if I ask a question, I'm like, we're gonna have to answer it. But it's liberating from the sense of like I have this vision in my mind of like running a race and constantly looking for the finish line, and then people being like, you finished that race like 30 miles back, like you're just running, and you're looking ahead for a finish line that you've already crossed, and when we talk about it in this context with the vulnerability and the messiness and all that stuff, it's like if you're looking for the vulnerability finish line, you've crossed that path now, like let's go see where, like let's go run a different race, let's go walk, or let's just go recharge, or let's go do something else here for a bit. So I'm actually I appreciate what you just said, because it has actually opened up a brand new path. The mental me is slowing down and going for a walk now, and just asking myself the question, where are the races that I've already won, and like or at least completed, and like where can I stop trying to run toward a finish line that is not ahead of me but it's actually behind.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that feels it here. So you've been now here, like, so we've gone in a couple of different places, but like you were talking about like navigating and sharing out in the world from a vulnerable place for you, right? And you put it out in the space, and you made the decision to go forth and share what it is that like really was real for you, right? And you started getting some things back. You started getting some things, and that also really struck me. Like if I'm hearing you, your default expectation, probably before you're a powerful person, you know how to, like, you have the tools around you, do teach this stuff, so I'm sure like you were able to leverage some of those tools to your behalf around it. But like your default story around what will be like the actual experience was very different. And it's so funny for me because I hear it, I'm like, of course it would be totally, like, of course it would be that, but it's very different being in the actual experience of it, right? So I love it. Like, would you mind sharing a little bit more from that perspective?
Yeah. It's funny because it is funny, actually. Yeah, that's the right word. Because
I really appreciate that, by the way. I really appreciate that you caught that and you're like, is it funny? Yes, it is. Let's continue.
It is. Because as it was happening to me and all these physical things was going on, my mind was thinking, oh, this is great. I can use all of this stuff and then I can teach people about it, right? Then I can make books about this. Then and I had this whole thing. And that's all part of the craziness going on, and shows just how hyped up I was in my head of wanting to deliver. And it took me, well, I started reading up on things. How long does it take to get, move away from burnout? And I said, oh, it would take you 6 months to a year, normally a bit longer. And I thought, no way, it's not going to take me that. It'll take me 3 months. I'm going to do it. I'm a high achiever. Come on, how hard can it be, right? I changed my life dramatically. I went from, not eating very well, I'd stopped meditating. I was working really long hours. I was answering the phone at crazy hours. I was all this sort of stuff. And I went, nah, I'm stopping caffeine. I'm changing my sleeping routine. I am exercising again. I'm meditating again. I used all my tools that I had. And after 6 months, I started to realize that this is not a race. This is the race that you have to stop running to win. And when I realized that, I decided to let it all go and thought, well, if this is my journey, then I'm not going to plan to write a book about this. I'm not going to plan to know that I know how long it's going to take me to heal. I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers or somebody out there has the answers for me. This is my journey. And I had to slow right down. And when I did that, I started reconnecting to something that I had missed. And that was that spiritual essence of me. And that is the thing that shifted a lot of things for me, that shifted that journey. It shifted that view or that perception that I had about who I was, what I was supposed to be doing here, the visions I had about what I needed to create, and that need to get somewhere, need to create something because I haven't done enough. All of that shifted, and I realized, oh, I'm already doing all those things that I said I was going to do. I'm already doing it. I just haven't actually realized it because I'm still running.
Can we pause on that really quickly here? Because I think that there's something really in that statement there. I think the reason I'm saying can we pause on it is because, like, my goodness, does it resonate with me. The elements, like I said, like I'm running the race still, right? It's like, oh, like one day when I get there, it's like, have you stopped to like see what's actually available? I want to just put that, like, bring this here and like pause on it a little bit to let that breathe. Like the component of what if we were already there? Like what if, yeah, that is really exciting to me to like explore. Like we'll give it like just like 2-3 minutes right now just to explore that like concept there, because you're talking to a bunch of high achievers, of people who created like incredible success in different ways, you know, who have found that like it's almost like what's readily available for them is like within arm's reach, and yet we're out there creating and running and doing all the things other than just being like just taking what is almost rightfully theirs. And that's what comes to my mind. Like it's just like it's just right here for you. So I love that you brought it in. I feel like it's important in this moment to like just slow down with that a little bit, and like I don't know. It's like I'm like in the encouragement of like taking some inventory. Like here it is. Let's do this. Let's offer. I'm going to offer something here around like, hey, here goes how someone may be able to slow down with it. And if you feel inclined to also offer something, right? The simple thing that comes to me right now is just to like look at something that you're trying to accomplish, and just take a quick inventory of like why it's important to you, and check in on each of those different components to see like what exactly already exists and how might that already be existing in your world right now, to whatever capacity that it is. There's always going to be more that could be done, but I also recognize it's like, but it almost doesn't feel like a destination. Like when I hear it with you now, it doesn't feel like it's no longer the destination to get there. You're recognizing that it is the journey, and as it's going along, there's embodying and taking in what has been created as more is being created.
Yes. And to kind of add on to that, I think the difference metaphorically would be seeing your life as a path forward. I mean, often when we talk about life, we talk about the path forward, you know, for ordinary people or for people living life. Sometimes by default, it goes that line goes a little bit upwards like that. And then you talk about the exponential success and all these things, or living exponential, and then it can go like kind of like that. But it's always moving that way. But the thing is, that's not reality. That's not life. Life moves that way. It moves in cycles. It moves that way, around, upwards. And that's what we got to remember. So it's through you, not towards something.
Okay. We got to slow down and say this almost again, because it's like you said, that's what we got to remember. And I'm like, I don't think that's like a concept that like many of us have, that we've forgotten. I don't know if we've ever really seen life as a cycle in that way. So just like, let's just say that one more time here. Let's like, and let's find a way to like make it real. And then we'll wrap up for today. Cause I'm feeling it. There's a lot of truth in what you just said. And what comes to my mind is like, what happens when you do see life as a cycle, as opposed to as that forward only.
Exactly. So think about moving through anything, whether it's, reaching another target or a goal, or healing from pain or trauma or whatever it is. We seem to think that once I do that, once I get to that point, then I can move forward. It's always this one step moving to the next step. But the truth is, and I know this from working with people that have been through trauma and been through pain, so we can compare this to something that's quite heavy for people. What happens is not this. If you think that life and trauma and everything is something that we move past and beyond, we're never really going to feel completely healed and fulfilled in our lives, because it will come back to us sometimes. We will get triggered. Something will move us in a way that makes us feel uncomfortable. And if we can find a way to rest in that and go, there it is again. Okay, how does that feel for me now? And allow that space to be, and to be okay for you, to give space for that uncomfortable feeling, and not saying, that's not because I've moved far enough down my path or whatever it is. No, it's because life moves in cycles. You are here to learn things in your life, specific things in your life. You might have teachings that you are here to learn and grow around. And that's why they come back to you, so that you can find a new growth through that. It's growth potential. It's moving into a new level of seeing it. And it's not linear, it's spiral.
I think it's a great place for us to like let that just kind of float, like be out there, because it's a different way of looking at it, to really look at it and move it from like that spiral kind of experience. I've been saying a lot about grace recently, and I feel like there's some element of that comes in here, where it's like, not like, I should have gotten this done, I should have handled this already, we really took care of this, as opposed to like what I heard from you with that level of grace, like, okay, this is here now, like, okay, this is here again, it makes sense. I must, like, I think about it when I hear that, around like every time I'm looking to go to my next level, some element of like being alone shows up, and it's changed over time. I could be physically alone, but it's like, ooh, can I really say this out loud? If I say this out loud, will people still follow me? Will people think that I even have like any kind of clout or anything like that? And it all boils down to, if I'm alone, then I can't take care of myself. And if I can't take care of myself, I will wither away and die, and it's like every time that the level changes, that cycle comes on. So I'm really glad that you put this structure, it's like how life actually goes, into perspective, because like, again, the idea of grace and freedom, and like it just offers a different way of looking at it, as opposed to feeling bad about it.
And I'll give you another thing just quickly, just on that. When we're doing the workings on ourselves to do with this, what to think about is that there are sort of 4 levels of how we can work and how we can deepen that experience, or how we can sort of grow within that, whether that's loneliness, or whether that's dealing with something else in our life, not feeling enough, or whatever is coming back in your life in different shapes, right? The first level is our story. So, and that's a big part when we start working with ourselves. We have a story around, I feel this, I feel that, there's this story that comes in, right? And we have these stories that we live by. underneath that is our identity. That's I defined with this. This is who I am. I have a sense of loneliness, or my trauma is part of me, or whatever it is. Like we have an identity, we identify it we identify that with ourselves. The next level of that is inner knowing. That's your third level. That's connecting to something deeper than your story, than your identity. It goes into your inner being, connecting to the truth behind it. And once you reach that level, the level underneath it is the deep knowing. That's the connection to something that's even deeper beyond yourself. The connection to something greater than you. It's seeing the connectedness with everything. Seeing your path as part of the tapestry of life. So if we can sort of visualize, you can maybe see it in front of you, that those are the levels that we can move through. And as we move through those levels in our lives, the way those teachings come forth, the way loneliness comes into our life will shift. We will start seeing it differently because we've moved from story to identity to inner knowing to deep knowing. So I hope that is helpful for people listening to this, that's a place to start working with this.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful framework to be able to have, to both see where the journey is, and also just be in the space of recognizing that, oh, I'm not actually approaching this from the same place that I was before.
Yes.
It's not just that I've changed, but like my depth with this has changed.
Yes, exactly. And when we're teaching at the college, like that's part of the teachings of how to be a good coach or a good deep, that does deep coaching, transformational coaching, or holistic counseling that we're teaching. Those are the levels that we work with our clients as well. That's where we want to help them get to. It's moving from that story into identity, understanding who they are, into the inner knowing, the wisdom within themselves, and then into that deep knowing.
Mm-hmm. So I like this here. I think it's a good time for us to create some space for if someone wanted to deepen the conversation with you, deepen their experience with you, what's the best way that they can go about doing that right now?
Visit my website, madelinevallin.com. If you like what you see and if you want to take it further, there's a way to fill in an application form and see if we're the right fit to work together. I only do have a few spots a year because I'm very busy, because I'm teaching as well at the college. So I take 3 clients a year and that's it. But definitely there is a spot available there. And if you want to do training, if you want to learn about all this stuff, then Australian School of Holistic Counselling is offering courses. We're launching a new course next year, which will be, it was actually 2 courses. One is a smaller course, which is a coaching course, and then you got the holistic counseling course, which is a 1.5 years, where we teach all this stuff, which is really exciting. So at the beginning of next year, we're gonna launch that one. We still have some courses now, but this is the next level. This is really exciting. This is our courses. It's not a license. It belongs to us. It comes from my experience working with clients, teaching all this stuff for the last decade. So this is a great course if you're interested in sort of deepening yourself, becoming a great transformational coach, holistic counselor. If you're wanting to take your clients deeper, that's the course to do.
Fantastic. And we'll end this conversation with one thing I like to end our conversations with. A lot of times we look to see what's a place that you need to go. And if you talk to your former self, what would you tell them? If you had to leave a message right now, though, Madelaine, for your future self, someone that maybe 10 years later will come back and listen to this here, what's the message you would leave today for your future self here?
Well, that's a tricky one, because it feels like my future self would already know it.
Cycle though. So there's some element of that that will show up. Yeah.
Remember to connect. Remember that the wisdom lies beyond yourself. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know everything. yeah, I think that's it.
That's absolutely lovely. Thank you, Madelaine. Thank you so much for being you and for bringing you into this conversation. I'm excited for everything that comes from here.
Thank you.
We're just getting started. Take 10 seconds to think about your greatest insight from today's conversation. And if you're ready to go and bring this to a deeper, more applicable level for you, come and join us in an upcoming masterclass. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass to be coached live and to bring your aspirations, your goals, and your challenges and have them handled in real time. This is high flame, high impact, high transformation. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass and come experience your next level of leadership.